Okay, this mini lecture has two main goals. First, I want to talk a little bit about what these sort of mini papers are and these group discussions you're going to be involved with, how they work. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about those elements of film form, how to understand them, how to use them, how they sort of play into the course. First things first. So every week, you're going to write a one-page paper, 300 words to 500 words. These are papers. They're not just responses. They're not just whatever your feelings are. I expect a title, an introduction, a thesis, some discussion of that thesis, and then some sort of conclusion. I hope there's a very useful document called Some Thoughts on Essay Structure that I really want you to look at. Okay, the idea of this first week, hopefully it's pretty simple. Give us some information about you. The whole idea of the essay is to simply introduce yourself to everyone else through film. What two or three movies that you've seen throughout your life have really sort of impacted you or shaped you or gave you something wildly specific to think about, to chew on, or that inspired you or gave you some emotional respite from the potential horrors of everyday living? Some stupid examples from my life. One of the very first memories I have as a person is I was traveling in Pennsylvania, sitting on my sister's lap in a car. I was probably 3 or 4 years old. They actually did have films in 1842, believe it or not, when I was, sorry, bad joke about getting older. It was actually 1978. And I saw what I thought were these two gigantic monsters fighting with swords in the middle of the woods. Never talked about it. It just scared the living crap out of me. I'll try not to swear. And then I realized years later that was actually Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and it was Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi on what must have been a drive-in movie screen. And we were just driving by it. And my first book ends up being on Star Wars, and I've taught classes on Star Wars, so I guess that influenced me pretty deeply. Side note, I kind of hate all the new Star Wars movies. That's a discussion we can have if you want. So I could argue that in my mind, I don't think I ever quite knew what reality was growing up, because in the back of my head, there are these weird, horribly tall, crazy, evil, sort of demon things fighting each other with swords. That was real. It took me a while to realize that wasn't there. And then maybe a more practical example, The Fisher King, a film we're going to watch in a few weeks. The first time I saw it, it's about clowns in a way. It's about jokers. It's about folks who think that life is so absurd that they either respond to it by making fun of it or perhaps, quote unquote, losing their minds. And that's not meant strictly in a mental illness sense. We'll talk about what it means to actually walk away from one's cognitive sensibilities. In that film, I just thought it was so smart and so beautiful, and I don't think I'd ever seen anything that was purposefully put together like that. So I watched that film, and it really started to get me to think about, why am I trying to get a job, buy a house, maybe get married? That narrative that we're all given. It was the first time that I really questioned that might be what I want, what I don't want, etc. And it also made me think a lot about stuff. What does it mean to own something? What does it mean to be known, a celebrity or something like that? And what does it mean to follow stories? You'll see in my Fisher King lecture that in a few weeks that there's a story of the Fisher King, which is basically one of the King Arthur legends. And it's basically about how to be kind, which might sound kind of corny and kindergartenish. It's something I still try to follow to this day. So those two films, Star Wars and the Fisher King, I could talk about. And I'm kind of, what does that tell you about me? Well, I'm kind of a dork. I don't do much. I like to watch films, and I like to talk, and I like to get to know people really, really deeply. I study a lot, I play music a lot, and I hang out with my cat on the front porch. That's pretty much my life. And then I might talk about my degrees or, stuff like that. For you, find out what films sort of strike an interest in you, things or films that you've absolutely hated that somehow mark your life. And explain to us who are you. You can be as personal or as professional as you want with these. That's really up to you. How do you want the course or the people in the course to know you? Okay, I'll stop babbling. The groups. Sometimes you'll be in one huge group of 25 students. Sometimes you'll be in small groups of 5 students. We'll sort of see how that works week by week. If there are certain people you want to work with in the course, just let me know. If there's certain folks, something happens, you know this person from somewhere else, it's your ex-boyfriend, something like that, just let me know and I'll make sure you guys don't have to interact in small groups, etc. Okay, last note about the structure of these things, the discussions themselves. Due dates are always Wednesday at noon. Always, always, always. For everything you have to do, the paper, the midterm essays, everything's Wednesday at noon. My thinking is, You can watch the films over the weekend. You'll have a couple days to write a short paper. And then between Wednesday at noon and Friday at 5, you have to respond substantially to 2 of your peers. And I tried to explain what those responses should be throughout the course. That's it. I can't wait to sort of see what you guys come up with, see what your thinking is. And again, feel free to ask me any questions. And I really look forward to seeing next week once we start our first film. Have a great week, guys. Take care.